Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming in. Please have a seat. Did you have any trouble finding your way here, or everything was pretty smooth? Yeah, I know it can be a little bit tricky, especially coming out here to Las Cruces. Sometimes, especially coming out to this location, sometimes people will get to the turnaround and they'll literally make a complete U-turn and just go back the other way. So getting lost can happen, but I'm really glad you're able to find your way here. You're perfectly on time. And if you're ready, we can go ahead and get into why you're here. Awesome. Well, if you got everything settled, my name is Jareth. I'm one of the caseworkers here. And to my understanding, you made a phone call yesterday afternoon, inquisitive about different services that we offer. And I'm here to follow up. You can call this kind of like our initial intake, okay? Well, Kiori, it's obviously great to meet you. There were some notes left for me, but although I appreciate the diligence of one of my coworkers and their note taking, I'd rather hear more about things from you. All right. So a lot of the reason for your visit today has more to do with what's going on between your daughter, options for care, you and your daughter work. Oh, that's pretty. Yeah, that's a nice setup. You know, I'm not really a Raiders fan, but I do get how having that opportunity to be around the MGM all the time, that does sound like a lot of fun. Okay, okay. And Brittany, what does Brittany do? All right, all right. Well, it sounds like two women that are, strong, independent, taking care of things, taking care of family, matriarchal household. I get that. Okay. And you have a son. All right. So your son Kevin doesn't actually live with you. He lives with his girlfriend. Okay, so Kevin's still in Arizona, and you're doing things. You're bouncing between. Got it. All right. Well, that's a lot of commuting. Okay. All right. So just to do a brief recap, what I'm hearing is you and your daughter are both working. You're working 10 hours a day. Your daughter works 8 to 9 hours a day. And between the two of you, you're running a household together. Your daughter's children, your grandchildren, are there with you. So between you and your daughter, you're balancing during off periods who's looking out for them. The children are, two of them are elementary school age. One is not so much a newborn, but 3, 4 years. They're in a younger range. Okay. And your son spends a lot of time in Arizona between his girlfriend and his dad. And your children are over 20. So that would make you 39, close to 40. Well, I appreciate that. I do have an eye. So you being, you're closer to a little over 45. Okay, I understand. Well, I'd like to do, first of all, I appreciate the introduction to what's going on in your family and your current life, your settings. But before we get any further into deeper, less surface level issues, I'd like to do a little bit of what we call housekeeping. And that housekeeping basically goes over a few guidelines that we have. Again, grateful that you're here today, grateful that you're willing to share your story and what's going on in your life as you look for options and opportunities to provide stability, not just for yourself, your grandkids, your daughter. I think that's wonderful. Here we have part of the good housekeeping is what we like to call confidentiality. So when we're talking about what's going on with yourself, what's going on with your daughter, your son, maybe even with your friends or immediate family, if you have brothers or sisters, a good thing to keep in mind is what you do share stays between you and I. The only time I may be required from my position to act outside of your behalf is if we're having a discussion and we're discussing things that are currently ongoing, such as domestic violence, emotional, physical, sexual trauma. All of those are key things because I'm what's considered a mandatory reporter. So there are conversations we can have, and it's free, it's clear, but these are things that normally, for my field, I have to do what's called due diligence, and I may need to take these things to a supervisor, and from there, decisions might need to be made. So this isn't to discourage you from sharing. I encourage you to share because the more clarity you're able to provide on what's going on, quality of life, and everything inclusive with that, it gives me better opportunities to seek out resources, guidance, and programs that are in the best interest of all involved. How does that sound? Okay, all right, I can understand how that may be slightly off-putting. I do get that. Oh, well, okay, so as you were explaining a moment ago, you mentioned that your daughter and your grandchildren currently live with you. And there was an instance with your daughter and the father of her children. Okay. Well, my next question would be if there was an instance of domestic violence while they were living together, has there been any legal action taken so far, such as a restraining order? Okay, so there is a restraining order in place for your daughter's. Okay, all right. Well, that clears up a lot. So, in an instance of this, because legal action has already been taken, this is something that will be noted. I will note it, but it's already been addressed, so you don't per se need to worry unless there are the possibility of future instances. But again, because you've noted this, there is a case number and all this other stuff that goes along with reporting these type of incidents. It's already technically been handled, and anything that her your daughter's soon to be ex-husband may perpetrate at a later point. Okay. Okay, got it. I know it probably gives you a big sigh of relief. Yeah, you're totally good. But again, that's why we call it good housekeeping, just letting our clients know the possibility. But again, because it's already been handled, well, there you go. Okay, all right. Well, what about you, ma'am? Oh, all right. So experiencing similar circumstance with the father of your children. Okay. Well, I can understand. Like you just touched on, ma'am. Some in my field may refer to this as generational trauma. I may not necessarily agree with the terminology, and everything you've just expressed to me, like you said, Curie, you've done everything in your power to make sure that what occurred in your relationship with the father of your children, they don't repeat themselves. Well, I'd offer this. For you, you mentioned seeing your daughter and being physically present as he tried to kick down the door. And you said yourself, you remember when you experienced the exact same thing as her father tried to break down the door to get to you and the children. When was the last time, if you don't mind my asking, you've sat down and discussed with anyone, whether it's me or a different provider, how impactful those experiences have been for you? And if you've really sat back and processed how that has impacted other areas of your life. Okay. All right. I can see why that might make you hesitant in having long-term relationships. And that also, yeah, I can see why, as you just expressed, you believed you selected a long-term partner that would be good to you. And unfortunately, the relationship did not turn out the way you initially predicted. And that's just being human. There are some things that no matter how skilled we may think we are or how much we've studied, even in my field, there is always going to be something that we may not have considered, an X factor, so to speak. And as you just touched on there, I'm 100% certain you likely did your best to guide your son and daughter. So as they looked at partners, they were aware, as much as humanly possible, of how to properly vet their partner. Okay. Well, Kiori, one of the things I like to point out is as we're having this conversation, I hear deep-seated connections because you're starting to get into portions of the conversation that relate to early childhood trauma within your own life. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing discussion relating directly to things that may have occurred to you as a child. And because of that, one of the things I'd like to offer you is an opportunity to sit down with one of our therapists, or if you're comfortable, we can continue having this conversation, because I think there's a lot that can be unpacked, especially with the newness of what your daughter just survived and how to best protect her, your concerns about your son, obviously your concerns about their grandkids, and what they may have witnessed themselves. I think we have a really good course of action coming up for everyone's best interest. Well, I understand you're a hardworking woman, and there's going to be natural concerns about what programs you may be eligible for based on your income of you and your daughter. This is where we would take a look at the combined household income. That plays a role in things as well. We mentioned earlier the cost of being here. We do have programs that we receive donations from. We do have programs that are available where, again, they're going to take into your adjusted gross income into account what can be done for things like childcare. And you do, living in Las Vegas, that is an expensive place to live. I do believe we can look at options for childcare. I do believe that there should be options available for you regarding other social services outside of my case management, from counseling, survivors therapy. There are telehealth programs available where, if you feel comfortable, even something as simple as talking with a therapist. I can understand that, given what you just described to me, the hesitancy in sharing more of what's occurred in your life with others, especially in a group setting. So that's why my offering at this time will be considering okay. Well, I'm definitely open to seeing you more and more sessions with you myself, because everything I've heard so far sounds as a woman that recognizes patterns in her life, wants to make improvement, move forward, but understands the importance of reconciling the past and closure. If it sounds good to you, I'm going to talk with the scheduler. And if you have time, whether it be this week or next Monday, you are more than welcome to come back to my office and we will continue. But in the meanwhile, what I will do, because I do have your phone number, I'm going to give you my work phone number. And I'm going to start by speaking with one of my supervisors on the best route we can take towards building a successful care plan or package for yourself. And if you have time, if your daughter has time, her coming down so we get to sit with her, speak with her as well. And even the kids. Again, we're not here to do child protective services work. Our goal at this stage is to assess and look at the best opportunities to give your quality of life the foundation it deserves. Well, thank you, Kiori, for coming in. It's definitely an honor to talk to you. Again, we have what we like to call, it's wordy, but we call it the Therapeutic Alliance. All of this, everything that can be done, is how you as the client and I work together. We must find that balance. And so far, I think we're off to the right start. You've been ample in your sharing. You've been giving me great feedback, especially as far as what you're comfortable, not comfortable with. And I think we're off to a great start. And again, I look forward to working with you as early as next week. Well, thank you for coming in.